Hi, this is Satyarup Siddhanta. Recently I have climbed the highest mountains of each of the continents and the highest volcanoes of each of the continents. These are called the Seven Summits and the Seven Volcanic Summits. I became the first Indian and the youngest in the world to complete all this. Recently Guinness World Record has approved this claim, and I also went for the skiing, the last degree skiing to South Pole, and very soon I will head back to North Pole again for the second time to complete the Explorer's Grand Slam. I never had a dream of climbing mountains ever. It was never my childhood dream because I was detected for asthma when I was in class 2, and as a kid I was very happy that I was sent back home because I can come back and play, but never thought that that would become such a hindrance in my life. When I was in college in 2001, I went to Sikkim, Manipal's engineering college is there, and I had an attack, and that day I thought I will die because I didn't have my inhaler in my pocket. But that was my turning point, and when I realized that I was very much dependent on this inhaler, I decided to take control of my life, and I decided not to use the inhaler, not to keep the inhaler in my pocket again. And I started doing conditioning of my body, and over the next 7 years I came to a situation where I was not using the inhaler again. I was not using any of the anti-allergics, and but there was the big fear which was always there, that what if it comes back, what if it comes back. I was shown some pictures of some mountains, I would say hills, which is Parvatmalai. It is in Tamil Nadu. But I was so fascinated seeing those pictures. My boss that time, he went for a trek. But when I got to know, and I had this desire, a very strong desire to go for the adventure, and but I was not sure whether I can do it or not. So I asked my boss. He told me that if he can do it, why can't I? I think that bit of motivation was enough for me to give it a try. Tamil Nadu, it was hot summer day, amateur guys, and finally when I could do that trek in the evening, when I was reaching to the top of that hill, it was like a feeling of being the Lion King. He was standing at the top of that hill, and you could see the thin line, like the route is like a string, and I couldn't believe that I have come this far, because I thought that let me give it a try and maybe I will come back after half the route. But when I did what I did, not only it was the pleasure or the joy of climbing your first mountain, I got to realize that I didn't have to use the inhaler for one single time in that whole trek. So that freedom and that joy of climbing the first hill, I think that made all the differences and gave me immense confidence, and I decided and I realized that I can do anything that I really want to do. That's how my journey started. I would say it was I was an accidental mountaineer. When I saw Everest, and I thought it was just another trekking, and I promised Everest that I'm going to come back. And this is a very important lesson that I learned, that how the hell I could think of Everest, and it was the ignorance. If I would have known the facts and figures, maybe I wouldn't have allowed myself to go and think about climbing Mount Everest someday. I think that belief that I can do it helped me to go forward and think and plan. But when reality hits, like when I got to know about Everest, I realized that trekking and mountaineering were very different. And for the first time I was seeing those equipments in the book I have never seen before, and then I realized that I had to prepare myself, because I didn't want to give up on my dreams just because it is mountaineering and not trekking. I prepared myself, and I got to know about 7 summits. I went to some other mountains to prepare myself for Mount Everest. I went to Kilimanjaro, I went to Elbrus, I went to Aconcagua, I went to Denali. So that gave me a lot of confidence, and then finally I went for Mont Blanc, and then I knew that I was ready for Mount Everest. Finally, when I was all set and we were going to Everest Base Camp, and I could recollect all those memories that I did in 2010. 6 years later, I'm going back to that same place, and a lot of things have changed, and I was going slowly one step towards the dream. And then we were near Gorakshep and taking rest before we go to Everest Base Camp in an hour or so, and suddenly this earthquake happened. We barely survived that, and all the money was lost, and I didn't know what to do. The dreams were crushed. So in 2016, miracle happened, and Nepal government, they what they did was they waived off around $11,000, and I could go next year again, and this time with no expectations from Everest, because we have seen the worst, and we knew that we had nothing to lose. All we can do is to gain. Yeah, the experience was really enriching in Everest, and out of whole experience, I can bring out 3 experiences which are very close to my heart. I woke up one day at Camp 2, and suddenly I realized today is my birthday, and celebrating a birthday at Camp 2 on Everest, I felt myself very lucky. And the best part was that day we had to cross Khumbu and come back to base camp, and crossing Khumbu is one of those spine-chilling experiences. On the way to base camp, so at one place, my other team members, they suddenly realized that that day was my birthday, and they started wishing me, and we stopped at one place. Suddenly our Sherpa head, Pembaji, he came and started shouting and telling that, "Are you mad? You are standing here, just go. Anytime this can fall off, and you will be all dead meat. On your birthday, you don't want that, right?" And at the base camp, we had a very good party. We sang, and we cut a cake. The Sherpas prepared a cake at that high altitude, can you imagine? And I was given that khada and all those things by our beloved Sherpa Pembaji. But when I look back at those memories, it really hurts me, because in that same expedition, those people who were singing in that same table, 3 of them are no more. So they died in that same expedition. But then we have to keep ourselves prepared for any kind of news, any kind of situations. The second one was I was going one day to Camp 2, and it was so hot. So after crossing 4 crevasses, actually, I was so tired because it was so hot and sunny day. So I stood at one place. It was just in front of a very narrow crevasse, and I thought, let me take some rest before taking that big leap, one big step. And suddenly, while I was waiting there, I could see my right leg, it was going down. Within a minute, within a second, in fact, I realized that the snow bridge is breaking, and immediately, out of reflex, I put my whole of the body weight on the other side, on the left side, and in 2 seconds, the entire section that I was standing, it just collapsed, and suddenly I see that I am falling, and I see that I am hanging on a rope, which I just put on the safety rope 5 minutes back, and I could see myself in the carabiner. I'm hanging there. I realized that I am in a crevasse where I could see, I couldn't see anything below. It was dark and deep. After 20-25 minutes, my co-climbers came and they pulled me up, and but that was when I look back, it's really scary. But again, that is an experience that taught me a lot of things in a hard way. And the third one was when I was almost about to reach the south summit. Suddenly my left eye went blind, and after some time my oxygen mask went that got blocked, and I couldn't breathe the artificial oxygen, the bottled oxygen, and I had to depend on the atmospheric oxygen, which was 1/3. Finally I could negotiate with one of the Sherpa friend, and we exchanged the mask for 10 minutes, and with the promise that I'll give back the mask after 10 minutes. So I went to the summit, clicked the pictures, videos, that was the proof, and when I was about to give my mask back, I realized that my Sherpa friend was wearing my mask and he was breathing through it, and I couldn't believe that how could he breathe from the mask which was not working. Was it my mind was playing games? But then I asked him, he pointed out to the sun, because the sun came up, the block went off, and that's how I got saved. So very, very interesting stories on the top of mountains, on the top of Mount Everest and many other mountains. Actually, you don't need an MBA if you are a mountaineer, because when you are a mountaineer, you need to take care of everything, like from people, from finance, from planning, from execution, from funding, from marketing, from everything, like, so name it, and leadership and everything is been taught in a very hard way on mountains. So of course funding is one such big area which in our country most of the mountaineers suffer from that problem, that not getting the sufficient funds. So I went for crowdfunding, then I started approaching companies, and then I approached my college, and the college was very supportive, and they funded me. I still remember the boss who actually brought me to trekking. He sponsored my shoes for Denali, so there had been some well-wishers always around me who had helped me to raise the funds. Things are changing with a lot of support from the news media and print media, and so the whole community, media community, they have been covering mountaineering now, and that of course is creating a lot of awareness of it, and there are huge possibilities of branding in mountaineering, and I think there is a silver lining in the cloud that is coming, and I'm very hopeful that the scenario is going to change, and the mountaineers would get their due credits, and I'm sure government will also look into this fact, and they will extend the support to the mountaineers, and not only government, all the private companies and all. This is an ideal place where the experience of a mountaineer can be taught in MBA schools, that how they manage with limited resource, how they manage with all the calamities, and the biggest risk is their life, and how they mitigate each of these risks and still achieve the thing that they want to achieve, the goal, the execution of the plan, everything. And I am very, very hopeful that the scenario is going to change. My next immediate plan is to take 2 groups to Everest Base Camp, and those are for more from the leadership point of view. So I'm just trying my hand there to see that how the journey can be more than just a trek, and how I can give them an experience through which they can explore the leadership qualities, they explore their different paradigm of their capabilities, and that is the immediate plan. And this year, I went for the North Pole to finish my Grand Slam, but due to the political situations there, the entire expedition got rescheduled to next year again, and so I'm hoping that next year I can go to North Pole, and I can reach to the top of the world, on the top of the earth, I would say, and I'm very, very excited for that, and wish me luck. I think if the mountaineers of India, they come together and hold each other's hands, I'm sure this adventure sport is going to go skyrocket, and we are looking for more collaboration, and I invite all the mountaineers of India to come forward and have a very strong presence in the community, make a strong community of mountaineers, and we can learn from each other's experiences, and we can do a lot of things together. I always believe in the power of dreams, and no matter how absurd it might sound to others, I'm sure if you have a dream, that cannot be absurd. Somewhere there is a possibility, that's why you had a dream. So it's all about, do you want to keep that dream as just the dream, or do you want to set, I heard from somewhere that if the dream is in your mind, then it is just a dream. If you are visualizing that dream, it becomes a possibility, and when you put a target to it, and when you put a plan to it, that becomes a reality. So it's your choice that how you want to climb your mountains. The mountains can be your next job move, or your career move, or maybe you are dealing with some personal crisis or anything, or you might want to do some social work, whatever it is. So look eye to eye to all the deepest fears that you have, and just climb those mountains, and I'm sure the dream won't be just the dream. It's a matter of time that it will become a reality. Thank you.